For Pearl, it really started at the age of 2. She was always like a vocal child. We noticed that she could always make sound. That was never really a problem. After we came on the course, we went away with all of the cues. Everything was in place, which is in a way a bit scary because you realise that you've got the tools, which will help her, forever. At the same time, you need to be able to practice it, and so there is like a leap of faith. Like, is this enough? Suddenly, it doesn't seem very much, even though you're very comforted by the stories that you hear. So when we're at home, we're lucky in a way, I think, that she was young, so she didn't need complex language structures, and so we got away with a lot of slow cueing and mistakes, I'm sure. I think one of the things really that you notice at first is that by cueing, it draws her attention to your mouth, right, to your lips, and it indicates that there is something important going on. Very quickly, I would say that she was able to use the cues back, but almost like sign, almost in a way that she would make a sound, and it wouldn't necessarily be the right sound, but it would be a sound accompanied by the cue. And we would just encourage that as much as we could, even if there was the right number of syllables, for example, but the sound wasn't right, that didn't matter. And it seemed there was like some kind of like magical moment when she would just put 2 sounds together, and that would be a word. And then it wouldn't be like 2 words, it would be 3, and then sentences, it seemed to come very, very quickly. It seemed to be the thing that she really needed. As far as helping for reading, that was really, I think, one of our first goals. When we first were told about Pearl having, these hearing problems, or it was confirmed really, we were given some terrible statistics about how hard it is for deaf people to learn to read and write, and never being able to read. And we thought, well, if she can learn to read properly, we're then sure that she'll have access to information, anywhere that's going on around the world, even if, she never actually is able to speak well. That was our first goal, and it's just an amazing tool to see. You're able to cue new words, and they can see, in the same way that a hearing child will hear, that there's a multitude of spellings to get the same sound. And that's not troubling. It's not troubling at all. It's that was our first relief. I don't know. I think, and after that, because her speech came with it. I mean, after, I don't know, a very short time, we just abandoned, she's got to learn to read and write, and just moved on to, she's got to learn another language. We would cue, the bedtime story, but we just use normal reader books appropriate for her age, and we'll just use cued speech as we had learnt it ourselves, like each word we would do, and then she would pick up in the way that any child who enjoys reading, like that sound, and then that sound would be with a cue. She wouldn't necessarily cue back to us, it was she could cue read, but it just keeps you on the straight and narrow. It just keeps you where you want to go. It means that she's got the right sound. I mean, even down to detail where Tracy, coming from the northwest, would cue differently from me coming from the southeast. And she would say some words with a northern accent and some with a southern accent, and obviously I would want more coming from the south, but butter being one of those words. She says, butter. Not good. It's bath, Pearl. It's bath. bath. And the next night, Tracy, bath. You know, so the pleasure of language was always there. It was just, we both enjoy reading anyway, so she happened to be born into one of those families that would encourage reading anyway.